Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Erica Lindemood, and I'm the Director of Public and Community Programs at Revolutionary Spaces. I'm very pleased to welcome you all to the event, Activism Boston, a historical tour and contemporary conversation, which is part of the Fierce Urgency of Now Festival. This festival is dedicated to discussing the experiences, challenges, and opportunities for young professionals of color in our community. As an event host, Revolutionary Spaces is honored to be working with the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce and their young professional network, City Awake, to make this city stronger and more inclusive to all. There are 40 events scheduled throughout this Fierce Urgency of Now festival, thanks to festival sponsors, the Barr Foundation, John Hancock, P&G Gillette, A&G, Iron Mountain, and Verizon. Revolutionary Spaces would also like to thank the Lowell Institute for its support of this and other free public programs throughout the year. If this is your first event of the week at the Fun Festival, you can see what other events are on the lineup at cityawake.org/FUN. Fun. The Fun Festival's goals are closely linked to the mission of this organization, Revolutionary Spaces, to explore our nation's unfinished struggle to build a free society, as evoked by the two national treasures we care for, Boston's Old South Meeting House and the Old State House. These historic buildings, located just 2 blocks apart in the center of Boston, tell the story of protest and the struggle of all people to have their voices heard. The Old State House was the seat of government in colonial Massachusetts and the center of our nation's fiercest debates about representative government during the Revolutionary era. The Old South Meeting House, known as the place where the Boston Tea Party began, was Boston's largest indoor space where townspeople gathered to find a collective voice loud and clear enough to be heard in the halls of power. At Revolutionary Spaces, we believe that history and memory are active tools for nurturing civic dialogue and sustaining democratic practices. We are pleased to offer today's dialogue as one of many conversations that consider the struggles of past centuries as a means of gaining perspective on the struggles of today. Before beginning today's program, we would like to acknowledge that the land the Old State House and the Old South Meeting House stand upon is the unceded, occupied homeland of the Massachusetts people. We acknowledge that the state of Massachusetts has been developed in the unceded, occupied territory of the Massachusetts, Nipmuc, and Wampanoag tribes, and we support them in their struggle. We honor and respect the many Native peoples who are connected to this place, past, present, and future. I'd like to give you just an overview of the agenda for today. After some brief technical announcements and panelist introductions, one of our panelists, Crystal Rollins-Jackson, will introduce and share the short film Abolition Acre. As a side note here, I want to call out that one of the 18th century activists referred to in this film, Crispus Attucks, is now featured in an in-person exhibition and an exciting series of remote panel programs with scholars and artists at Revolutionary Spaces. And you can visit revolutionaryspaces.org to learn more and participate. I encourage you to do that. We've got stuff going on practically around the clock, focused on Crispus Attucks and his memory and legacy. After watching the film, our moderator will lead a 30 to 40-minute discussion with our panel using questions that we have prepared in advance. And during this time, we invite all of you to share questions for the panel, as well as any technical questions you might have in the chat bar. Please select all participants and attendees when you write anything into the chat bar. That will allow us all to be able to see it and monitor what's going on there and communicate effectively. That would be great. Our moderator will pull questions from the chat bar to bring to the panel during the final 30 minutes of the program with help from me on the back end, and we will end by 2:45 promised. We'd like to invite participants to say hello in the chat bar, if you would be willing to do so and you feel comfortable with that. You can type in your geographical location, give us a chance to know how many of you are from around Boston and how many are visiting us from outside the area. And also any either professional kind of affiliation or anything, any kind of activism related affiliation or affinity that you kind of is important to you. If you'd like to share that in the chat bar as well, just to help us all get to know each other, that would be awesome. I just love when we have some of that kind of community building going on in the chat bars at these things during this time when we're all, many of us at least, are experiencing a lot of physical isolation and social isolation. So let's connect as we can. And again, select all panelists and attendees so everybody can see. And now I am very happy to announce today's panelists and our moderator, and then I will turn the stage over to Crystal for the film screening. So our panelists today are Crystal Rawlins-Jackson, visual artist, poet, and president of the Beacon Hill Scholars. Want to give us a wave, Crystal? Next we have Camille Madison, linguist. Camille is a linguist, Wapasori teacher for the Wampanoag Language Reclamation Project. And last but not least, we have Tem Blessed, who is a hip hop artist and also a graphic novelist. And our moderator today will be Amina Pilgrim, who is assistant professor of African American history at UMass Boston. She's also an oral history practitioner and a community organizer and activist. So now I'm very pleased to give the stage to Crystal, who will share the film Abolition Acre with us. Crystal. Crystal, you need to unmute yourself.
That's important, being able to hear me. I said good afternoon, and I said I'd like to give you a little background. The film is produced by the Beacon Hill Scholars, which is a group of history lovers. We came together because many of us actually live on Beacon Hill or have ancestors who lived on Beacon Hill from, the 1820s, from the 19th century. The group was started by Horace Seldon, who had passed in 2017 at the age of 93. He was an activist and a historian. He was a William Lloyd Garrison scholar. And one of the things that he did was this tour of the area that Erica was mentioning, where the Old South State House is. That's where the Black community was in the early 1800s to the 1880s. And so Horace is gone now, and we wanted some way to honor him, but also to educate people about the activities and the fight for social justice and the ending of slavery that was occurring in this area. And so with that, I'm going to share my screen and begin the film.
Congratulations on this amazing film, which is a gift to all of us. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. So we trust that our viewers who are here with us today and enjoyed the film and learned as much as we all did and have been inspired. I know I am. I'm honored to be here to be a part of this conversation and to celebrate the legacy of our ancestors in this way. So I'm going to begin by posing the first question. And I know that Crystal and our other panelists do look forward to answering this particular question. In what ways do you see yourself as an activist? Are there other terms that you might use to describe or to define the work that you do in community? Crystal, can we begin with you?
Well, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't often think of myself as an activist. I identify with being an artist. And I think that my art speaks to my activism. I use either poetry or fiber arts as the tool to open up the discussion, to educate, and most importantly, because of all that we have to go through for social justice, for healing. And we need to, I really believe we need to talk about that more, because what sustains the activists as they are, going through what they're going through and fighting. And so I feel, and I hope that that's what my art does.
Thank you. Let me just add on one thought. Maybe you have heard folks use the term artivism, and maybe you have some thoughts about that. But I love your comment about healing. And so you could also talk a little bit more about that, perhaps.
Well, I'd say that when I'm creating things, I come from a spiritual place. And I feel as if that what I'm putting into the art has a healing property to it. And there are instances when people will experience my quilts and they'll cry because it's touched them someplace very deeply. And so I feel as if, well, the creator is using my hands. I am the vessel, and the art is what is manifested.
Thank you. Well, we have two other panelists, two other artists in their own right. Let me hear from Tim Bless, who I've known for so many years, and I'm so proud to be here with today. Talk about your own sense of yourself as an activist, as an artist activist.
Yes, peace, love, and justice, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all, and an honor. And obviously with you, Amina Pilgrim, I call Amina Queen Amina. I have a lot of respect for her and the way that she always shows up with so much grace and a lot of knowledge and wisdom. For me, I do see myself as an activist. I do claim the term artivist because my art is always had that spirit of activism in it. I find it very hard to create any type of art that doesn't speak truth to power, similar to Crystal, in a lens of healing, wanting to heal, inspire, and agitate, make people uncomfortable at times, always in the spirit of unity and trying to find the solutions to these problems that we have out there. And so I say I'm a soldier for love, a general for peace. I wage love in the streets, fight so everyone could eat, roof over your head and shoes on your feet, a shirt on your back and a bed for you to sleep in. But we ain't sleeping, we stay woke. My third eye sees everything I spoke. These words Van wrote to lift all boats, ride waves. We ain't slaves, chains get broke like iron sharpens iron, the belt of Orion. Universal peace, life, truth, I'm flying. Follow your youth, don't give up, keep trying. Speak your truth, alternative facts is lying. Cause in this journey, we stay worthy. We take risks, your doubts don't concern me. We for the kids, the moms, the attorney, the teacher, the atheist, the spiritual, the clergy. Cause everyone is welcome here. Yeah, just as long as you don't welcome fear. That's right, I said everyone is welcome here. Yeah, just as long as you don't welcome fear. So I use my words, my poetry, spoken words, my book, Planeta Blue, to bring about, as we know, art has an ability to transcend and open up portals. And like Crystal said, which I agree 100%, you feel it, right? A lot of times, you know, people aren't just intellectually motivated by things, right? As we know, even right now, you know, people get the facts, but they're still like, no, I'm voting for this guy. I don't care what the facts say or whatever. So sometimes it's the emotion, the multi-dimensional aspect of art and music that will reach people and hopefully change them to be more human. That's the plan and the intention around my art and my activist work.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your energy, blessed energy with us. And Camille, would you like to speak on that first question?
Sure. I think that everything that has been said has been something that I believe I kind of embody as well. I think that there are different ways activism kind of shows up. And I think in my community, I'm a keeper of the language, and that in itself is activism. And I also think that our sacred and ceremony practices are also ways in which we resist and ground ourselves and find healing, like Crystal and Tim both have touched upon. And so with resistance and the keeping of our sacred, you know, just practices and things that we've held on to for generation from generation, those things are also ways in which I believe activism is used, or I don't know the word to use, but yeah.
Beautifully said. Well, I think for our viewers, I know for me, there's no doubt listening to all three of you that the creator, however you name her or him, is using all of you. Crystal mentioned using her hands, Tim definitely using your voice, your poetry, and Camille, as you said, keeping our mother tongues is so critical, especially in this moment as elders are disappearing. So you both already touched a little bit on the second question, but I'll repeat it anyway, which is, how do you see activism and citizenship connected? Or you can talk about, how do you see your community involvement in your role as an active citizen as being connected or different from each other? Whoever wants to jump in.
I could go. I think it's, I'm sorry, Crystal, were you about to say
No,
something?
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's so important. In the very least, I think, you know, sometimes people don't see themselves as activists, and I understand why it took me a while to embrace that term. I totally believe that we all have a talent, a purpose here on this planet, and so in just having that conversation with a parent, a loved one, a brother or sister, or someone who may be saying some things that are problematic, right? Things that are racist, sexist, homophobic, any of those things that in 2020 is really like unacceptable. I feel, this is my personal opinion, you have an obligation and a responsibility to, in the very least, speak up. Right? Even if it's not in a like, you know, taken to the streets, which, you know, I love to do, but I also know my activist role is to also have those one-on-one conversations as an organizer. That's actually when the most powerful things happen. And we also know that we can also be moved by someone else's perception of things or where they're coming from, and learn from, because we we're all, you know, I know nothing at all, right? As the quote says, you know, the wise man knows that he knows nothing at all. And I try to put that at the forefront so that I could say like, hey, I'm going to speak up, and also in this conversation, be open to being moved. However, there needs to be more people speaking up, because, you know, there's a lot at stake here. A lot of our ancestors, we just saw this movie, a lot of their work seems to be getting undone in the matter of a few years. And a lot of people, I think, have been lulled to sleep. And even myself, you know, I always thought that the progress of human development or evolution was kind of a straight line. And now I'm seeing like, oh, wow, like things can go back, and now we have to, you know, kind of move them forward. And it's, you know, really a circle, right? And so if we're not careful, and if we're not speaking up and activating our own truth and being authentic and speaking out when those moments call for, to tap into your courage to say like, no, I disagree, then that person might think it's okay and continue to do these things, and that turns into policy. Before we know it, we might end up back in shackles, which is not going to happen, you know, not while I'm here. And as our ancestors continue to infuse us with their spirit and their knowledge and wisdom.
Thank you. Crystal, I know you wanted to say something about one of your ancestors.
Oh, I was just going to say that it just starts with you, you know, and you are the example, and you know, the way that you act in your community, the way that you interact with your neighbors, the way that you take care of your surroundings, the self-respect that you have, it shows and it affects other people. And so, and I was reminded of my ancestor who, he was born in 1798. He came to Beacon Hill. He was a free man. He could read and write. And he actively signed and created anti-slavery petitions for over a 30-year period. One person. And so I think he sets the example for me as far as, you know, him working that hard to end slavery. And he also was one of the creators of the charter, which was a petition to create the Abel Smith School, the first African-American school in the country. So we need to remember that we have power, and that we can make the change. You know, it's in us. That was it.
And if I can just add something, as I hear Tim and Crystal both speaking about our ancestors, it's very important to note that as we stand on our ancestors' shoulders, we have young people coming up behind us, and they're also looking for that same guidance, and so as Crystal just said, we are the example. We're the example to the next 7 generations that come behind us. And that is a big part of why we walk the way that we walk, so that the young people coming behind us stand on our shoulders as well.
Well, well said. You know, this is so powerful, and hearing the details of your ancestor, Crystal, really inspire us with thinking about some of the practical ways that we can contribute and show the power that we have. So the next question is related to this in the same vein. How do you see making art as a reflection of your citizenship? How is making art an expression of your citizenship or your active citizenship?
I actually think it's really what I have just been saying, that it, you know, it starts with myself. And so a lot of my art has to do with looking back, remembering that collective memory that we have that maybe we don't understand or acknowledge. But it's when you are fighting for the cause, for the injustices, for against racism. You as Camille, I believe, said, you are standing on the shoulders of your ancestors, the people who came before you. So in reality, you're not really alone, and you can use that energy, that power, to move forward. And I think that's reflected in my artwork, because there's a proverb that many of my friends have heard me say, that it's an African proverb. It's Sankofa, which is a bird. The symbol is a bird going forward, but looking back. And so it tells you, and the actual proverb is go back and fetch it, which means that you can't move forward unless you know where you came from.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is ever present in my work, whether it's poetry or in visual art.
Thank you. I know that Sankofa bird, and that bird also inspires much of what I do. And I think all of us here today can relate to that. I think I'm thinking about this question in another way. Tim Bless moments ago mentioned that guy that some folks have voted for, and we're in an age where art is not given the value that it should, right? So some folks might not see art as an expression of activism or as citizenship. So maybe Tim and Camille, maybe you can speak on that, on the value of art in this moment.
I could go, Camille, if you want to go next.
You can go, it's fine, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that first of all, I think art is seen as the power. So I think, just to tie in, my ancestor, one of them is Amilcar Cabral. So I'm Cape Verdean. I was born in Guinea-Bissau, and Amilcar Cabral was very intentional in making us know in our fight for liberation and emancipation from the Portuguese at that time, which started slavery. If we really look at it, one of the original countries that spread slavery around the world to Brazil and, the Caribbeans, all around. So was that we were not fighting the Portuguese people, right? We were fighting this government, this system under Salazar, and that we needed everyone. We need women were at the forefront of the fight, and we were going to do it with our own power and need. And in tying it to what's powerful about that ancestor was that we won. Like, we got emancipated. Like, Cape Verde gained its independence in 1975, and it was because of his vision, being an agronomer, a scientist, and also a bridge to unifying folks, all these different tribes in Africa and Guinea-Bissau. And so when you look at the power, he was a writer, a poet also, along with being a military strategist. Amazing man. So please look him up. Amilcar Cabral is so powerful. But I think of art in that way that it's been weaponized against the people, right? You look at hip hop, for instance, which is, the culture that I fused Cape Verde in hip hop culture. It got hijacked a few years back. Hip hop is a powerful medium, but it's been stolen from us, right? It's been taken from us and made into just this money making, disrespect your women, do criminality. Not all of it, right? There's a spectrum of hip hop, right? Especially if you think of 1992 through 1996, you had, Fugees and Coogee rap, you had Tupac and Tribe Called Quest. And so you had this wide spectrum of beautiful music and also very street, right? Because that's part of the African-American experience here where, you got to be entrepreneurs. And if you don't have any other means, or if you don't see, right, you can't perceive any other means, you choose maybe to peddle drugs, pharmaceuticals, let's put it that way, because we know they're peddling pharmaceuticals to us every day. So art has been used through hip hop and other means to get at us, right? You think about the commercials on Super Bowl Sunday, right? That are so funny. Ha ha, what are they selling anyway? Well, subconsciously, boop, this is what we're selling. Here's a little idea for you to go out and buy some stuff that we want you to buy. So capitalism has hijacked art, has hijacked hip hop, has hijacked all the other art forms, especially where we're at now. And the real stuff only lives maybe on college radio stations or underground. Because when you speak truth to power, understand this, man. Part of the reason why a lot of y'all probably never heard of Tim Blessed or other artists that are speaking this type of revolutionary enlightenment, healing message, is that there's no money to be made in peace. Right? There's no money to be made in war. There's a lot of money to be made in incarceration. There's a lot of money to be made in pharmaceuticals, as we talked about, and about breaking up the Black family, right? To have men calling their women out of their name. You know what I mean? And that is a big problem. And just to cap it off, for me, I use it, and other people, we use it, but we get blocked. Understand that when you as an artist speak this truth to power, guess what? You don't get invited all the time to go speak again, because it's in direct confrontation with a system that continues to imprison, enslave, especially mentally. And music and art, as we know, examples here, has and Bob Marley spoke about it, emancipate yourself from mental slavery, can break those chains. And that's why when fascism comes in, the first people they go after is academics and the artists. As we know, they take those folks out. So yeah, I just think it's so powerful, and we have to take it back as the people.
Thank you so much, Tim. Camille, were you gonna add?
I'm not gonna add. I think that everything has been just spot on.
All right. Well, your comments, Tim, inspired one of our guests in the chat to ask about the Boston Art Commission. I don't know if all of you saw the question in the chat, but the question is related to the complicated process, which it can be restrictive at times, through which the government tries to kind of control public art, the creation of art. So I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that particular question. The question is by Michael Easler, and thank you, Michael, for that question.
Well, it seems, I agree with Tim that it's very political, and there's only a few artists that actually are able to, I think they're picked, and that's that. And so for me, I don't want to spend all my time trying to infiltrate these big commissions, or I realize that I want to affect a person one-on-one, as I had said before, one by one. If that should come along, that's great. But there's also there's a lot that goes with that, and to what expense to yourself, and how much do you have to compromise in order to get that? Is it worth it? I would rather be true to myself and say what it is that I think needs to be said or shared. And so that, to me, that's not my main source. I mean, it would be great for me to make a living off of my art, but at the same time, the structures that are in place, there's also this systemic racism that comes in to play, because we know that the system is predominantly white male. And so, me as a person of color, going up against that, it's just a lot of energy. So, yeah.
I would say same. I haven't really, to speak to that question, followed any of that, because, my activism and my art, although it's grounded in love, and I believe every revolutionary and artist needs to be grounded in love, it doesn't necessarily fit all the time. It should, you think it would, but I've never gotten, I've applied maybe once to something to that effect, but at the end, what was powerful about the film and reassuring and affirming was this reality of being independent, economically independent, that folks in the past needed to be, and even now, and that resonated with me because oftentimes, Coca-Cola is not trying to sponsor 10 Blessed, because, I don't believe in that. I don't believe what they're doing to the water supply. All of that kind of goes against their business model, if you will. And so they identify, us, and not to say that and at the same time, I'm open to that. I'm open to conversations. If any of those big organizations would like to invite, I'm open to it. However, I ain't selling my soul. I haven't till this day and never will. So.
Thank you.
And I want to also clarify that I'm not saying specifically to that question, because I've never applied to that and never seen it, Boston Commission. So.
Sure. Well, you brought up the film, and so this is a great segue to the next question. And for you, Crystal, since you worked on the film, maybe you can talk about any new discoveries that came out of that process. And for 10 Blessed and Camille, did you learn anything new from the film? Were you surprised by anything? Or what were some of the takeaways that you had? Crystal, let's begin with you.
I'm learning every day. There's just so much information, and so I did the narration, and so there's some of the things I knew, but then it's very interesting that as you grow, some of that changes the perspective, of where you're at. It changes, but it blows my mind that they were able to accomplish so much, and that they were willing to die for it, because being an abolitionist was dangerous. William Lloyd Garrison, he was almost lynched numerous times. People didn't want to hear about slavery ending because they were making too much of a profit. And there were plenty of people who may not have agreed with it, but they did not want to go up against it, and they didn't want to hear about it. And so that's what they were up against. And so when Horace says, agitate, agitate, that was William Lloyd Garrison's, motto. That's what he did, and many other abolitionists. And so I see that today. I mean, that's what's happening with all these protests. They're agitating, agitating, so that hopefully some of these laws will change to protect us. I'm not sure that answers the question exactly, but while we're talking about this and the film itself, I just want to recognize that in our audience are some of the Beacon Hill scholars. Lisa Breen, Peter Snowd, Edith Griffin, who's a direct descendant of William Lloyd Garrison, as well as Beverly Hector Smith, who was featured in the film. Sorry if I'm missing anybody, but I just wanted to just acknowledge that they're here and they're supporting me and still advocating for social justice.
Thank you for acknowledging them, and we all owe a debt of gratitude to all the Beacon Scholars for this work. And as someone acknowledged in the chat, the film is such a gift, and the participant said, Tanya mentioned that it would be great to incorporate them into Boston Public School curricula. So I second that motion. Hopefully this event will help get the film more recognition and the recognition that it deserves. 10 Blessed or Camille, do you want to speak on the film and what you took away from the film?
Go ahead, Camille.
Sure, I will speak. I thought it was really interesting while I was watching it to kind of see the relation between today and then, because just from working with local activists in Boston, I just thought like, wow, this was so long ago, but not that long ago, but so long ago. But at the same time, here we are, still, seeking out the same liberation and sovereignty. And one of the things, some of the names were familiar, but I did definitely go and seek out Mariah Stewart's work, her lectures, and I listened to some of them. And I just thought that, just listening to people that had been in the places where we stand now, just listening to what she had to offer, and hearing the love, and feeling that love for her people through her work spoke to me greatly. And so, like everyone has already said, just very, very appreciative of the work and the continuation as well.
Yeah, I would just like to add that I also was, moved by the film. So thank you for everyone who took part in this, Crystal and the rest that are here today, because I didn't know a lot of this, right? So I've heard of a few. So William Lloyd Garrison, I've heard about him through Frederick Douglass, being that I came up in New Bedford and Frederick Douglass. And so, we'd hear about him in their relationship. And but I had never learned about Mariah Stewart. And I was moved by, a common theme by a lot of abolitionists, a lot of folks in the activist movement, that, spirituality really grounds folks. And the fact that she had this, religious experience spoke a lot to, our connection to something that's divine, and for working for something more, right? In this belief that there's something more besides just attaining wealth, right? Or, the car and the house and, the wife and kids and the dog, like all these material things, that there's something greater and bigger, and that we're here, to serve and do our part. And for me, it was just, there was a lot, there, including the Fugitive Slave Act, and this idea that Crystal spoke to, that really resonated with me, in that we are so fortunate now that, we might, get a bad comment under our, our Facebook posts or posts, right? Or, someone, we may lose our job if we were to really go up against the system. But these people were losing their lives, and as an immigrant, the last piece I'll make, as an immigrant coming here and seeing the political structure in United States, and feeling, I came up with George Bush and Clinton, and, and then, as we are dealing with Trump now, really hating the politics of America. And, as I matured, realizing that had nothing to do with the land and the people. It was more, the politics. And so at some point, I went from identifying as being African, right? I'm African because I was born in West Africa, to saying, okay, I'm an African American, and claiming that, right? And to even say, we are the Americans we've been waiting for. We don't want more war. We want peace, love, and universal law, universal health care, and corporate welfare, reparations for those enslaved, hell yeah, no fracking, nowhere, strength of the Black Bear, First Nation heritage, Confederate flag axed here, Klan gets unmasked here, Trump's toupee slash here, make America hate again, that's so last year. Of course, all lives matter, but why Black lives matter less? put cameras on all your vests so we can see you and all the rest. Do the right thing and they won't be massive protests. We vote yes. Free state college, fossil fuels abolished. Stop deceiving the people. Teach them real knowledge. That's how we gain wealth and maintain health. Stop working for someone else and work for yourself. So this idea of liberating is what I really got out of this film. And you know, to tie in, you know, the citizenship, like this is our America, right? A lot of times people like love it or leave it, right? You get that commentary, and I'm like, listen, I ain't going anywhere. This is a beautiful country. There's some beautiful people here, and we're gonna fight because we have to. You know, we really don't have a choice. I guess you have a choice, but what has always stuck out in you know, Harriet Tubman's another one, and I promise to end with this, but these people could have just gone on, right? And just lived a great life, right? With the knowledge and the status that they achieved. But they went back. They went back and they sacrificed or risked sacrificing their lives, possible lynching and all this. And that's so admirable and inspiring.
Thank you, Tim Bless, for that. Well, you touched on one theme that we forgot to discuss, which is the idea of activism because we have to, like you said, especially for people of color, for Indigenous, Black people, it's a matter of survival. So I'm going to start with you, Camille, for this one, because your passion and the work that you do is something that's close to my heart. And I'm sure for a lot of folks listening, especially anyone who's from a country that speaks languages other than English, you know, we can relate to that need, that essential need for the language to survive. So can you comment on that?
The need for our language. Oh, yes, absolutely. I think one of the reasons that I felt kind of led into the work that I'm doing now here in Mashpee is just the amount of violence that our people had experienced with, you know, the forces coming in and saying, you know, you can't speak your language anymore. And if you do, this is what's going to happen to you. And that was very intentional because in our language holds our culture. Our language really holds a lot of our beliefs, and it's just a big part of who we are. So when we talk about Wampanoag Tuaonk, which is the Wampanoag people language, we know that, you know, it lied dormant for over 150 years. And the reason that we're able to reclaim it today is because of the body of written documents that we have through the only translated Bible here on this continent. So if it wasn't for the Bible in our language, we wouldn't be able to do this work. And if it wasn't for them, you know, forcing our hand to write, because we are not a written people, we were oral people, we told stories. And that's a big part of our culture, is to pass down these stories from generation to generation. And so with these things that hurt us, they also kind of left gems. And I always like to tell the story because one of the words in our language is chipayakamakwat, and that is the word for hell, but not in the word that, not in the way that most people probably would define, or Christians might define hell. And so the breakdown of that word is because we believe that our heart and our spirit was here in our heads, and so we had to think about, you know, what was the worst thing that could possibly happen to us. And Chipayakamakwa is literally the place of the empty skull. And that is to lose heart, to lose your sense of knowing, to lose your spirit, and to lose yourself. And so knowing that and learning that lesson really kind of brought me to this place where I really understood how necessary the language was for our communities. And knowing that, you know, there were over 69 Wampanoag villages here in Massachusetts. And now we have 4. So I make it a big part of, you know, everything that I do, to speak the language as often as I can, whether it's, you know, just a little bit, you know, to everyone that I see that is a part of the community here. It's just vital. And so without our language, we perish, because our language embodies our culture. It embodies our beliefs, our practices. And so, yeah, that is the work. I hope that answers your question.
Does, and we got to hear you speak the language so beautifully, and we are so grateful for you, and just encourage you in all the work that you do. Thank you. And I think that I think the comment that you shared with us also, you know, beautifully speaks to the importance of this film, because the film, through you, Crystal, and the other Beacon scholars, is making sure that, you know, we don't lose a critical piece of ourselves in that history. So let's just talk about a couple of other questions and open it up to the viewers. This next question is really about the moment that we're in. Obviously, 2020 has been quite the year, and we hope that for all of the panelists as well as the viewers, we hope that everyone is safe or staying safe. But the question is, how have the double pandemics of COVID-19 and systemic racism, or specifically the Black Lives Matter movement, impacted your own experience as an activist? Or how have they impacted your communities? And I'll start with you, Crystal.
Well, I think I'll reflect back at what Tim was talking about when he said that it's like every day. It's not any different than there's always an assault on my community. You know, I live in a predominantly Black community and low income. And so there's always these things happening within the community. And this to me just is another thing. It just so happened that it's affecting everyone. But I feel like saying to people who are not of color, well, welcome to my world. You know, because you know, the access to healthcare, the fact that there's this environmental racism that is happening right as we speak in my neighborhood, the fact that there's gentrification in my neighborhood. You know, I don't know my neighbors anymore because the developers have come and they've, you know, they've bought it up, made condos, made it so expensive that no one that looks like me can afford to be in my neighborhood anymore. And so, as I said, this is just another thing. And I'm actually tired of them saying, well, it affects, you know, Black people and Latino people more. Why don't they really talk about why that is? Because we don't have the access to the healthcare, and we don't have access to the same things that non-white people have access to. And that's a lot of the problem. Being turned away from the hospital when you have the virus, and you know, dying outside the hospital because you can't get the services. So, yeah.
That's right. Thank you. Camille, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna add to that, because I mean, I think a big part of our culture is also hunting and fishing and foraging, and even more so now with folks, you know, losing, you know, their income, or needing to feed their families. And I know that this spring in particular, we had a lot of tribal people experience a lot of obstacles and challenges trying to access the water because of those residents that live on waterfront properties. But what these residents don't know is that this is our right to fish, to hunt, to forage in places that we have traditionally done these things for thousands of years. And because of this happening, I, along with two other community members, we started an initiative called Eastern Woodlands and Water Initiative to kind of help support our people who were encountering these mean-spirited people, you know, yelling at them and, you know, calling the environmental police as well as the local police for people that were just practicing their indigenous rights, you know, our rights, that we have a right to fish and hunt and forage. And so a big part of what I'm thinking in terms of today, I think that also with the issues with the land here in Mashpee, with them, the government threatening to take this land from under us, especially in the midst of a pandemic, is just evil. And I think that all of these things kind of have flared up because of, you know, that evil, and they continue to show up. And one thing that I have, you know, definitely tried to be more intentional about is, you know, just checking on my folks and, you know, doing my best to support them. I reached out to a friend who works with the National Lawyers Guild to do a training on, you know, just engaging with the police, engaging with abutters, so that people feel confident enough and secure enough to go out and still practice, you know, our practices. And so, yeah, I think that this work is definitely something that is important for all of us, you know. So, yeah.
Thank you. Tom Bless, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that, Camille, and giving us an insight to, you know, stories that we don't always get to hear, right? Because the media wants to, you know, just report on what Trump is doing, no matter what channel you're listening to. It's Trump TV, right? And so these gatherings are so important. I just want to, you know, I guess let me start with a positive of COVID-19. One positive is people have had to sit, right? Sit still, reflect, prioritize what's important. That was some of the beautiful things that were coming up. People were like, hey, my elders matter. We're gonna change the times that they could shop. You know, some beautiful things started happening at first. And you know, and I'll stay on the positive look that, you know, people finally started seeing the importance of mindfulness, of meditation, of going out into nature, of really then, you know, and is the shift that's still a positive, be able to see, because they had to sit still, see this evil, this lynching of George Floyd, right? And I don't think a lot of people had ever connected, you know, to be able to be like that viewer, to see like, look at this man dying in front of us, and to hone in and zoom into the eye of this so-called police officer killing this person, even though the crowd was like, you're killing him, right? But they saw it, they witnessed it, right? We all witnessed it. What's sad, and this is going to, you know, the BLM moment, is that this has been our lives, right? For me personally, I survived the police attack back in 2006, you know, pursuing life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's what I was doing, just going to go do a show at UMass Dartmouth. And then I get assaulted. And then I get, luckily the police officer had a flashlight in their hand and not a pistol, because my brain would have been gone, as opposed to just my ear being obliterated. And so I had to spend 2 years talking to people like, well, what did you do? I lost jobs, right? I was due to get this position at City Hall, and the mayor at the time was like, well, were you drunk? And I'm like, well, why are you asking a police officer if they were drunk, right? Luckily, people knew who I was, right? This is pre-Black Lives Matter, right? So people are like, well, what did you do? Listen, I was just walking, right? And we've heard the term all the time, walking while Black, doing whatever, but while Black, right? And we've been reminded also during COVID of these Karens, right? People who are just out there and saying, you can't do that, you can't, you know, and weaponizing, calling the police. And so it's important for people to internalize this. I think that's what a lot of our white allies need to do. And I love our white allies, you know, shout out to all of y'all and all the other folks who are allies. And excuse my little daughter in the background there, Ori. Ori, I'm on a call, okay? Yeah, thank you. So we've had to, all of us, right? This is the difference. And for our white allies, like, what would you do if your child, and I want you to really like feel this uncomfortableness, right? If your child, right? Think about your child. If your child was shot, killed, or just, you know, snuffed out, and you went to the police and they said your child was the problem, what would you do in that case? You know, really say, or your nephew or your father got killed by the police. What would you do? Right? I've had to think about it, but more importantly, for all the people of color throughout the world, we see these people, right? I see George Floyd, he looks like my brother. You know what I mean? These kids look like my students. They look like my nephews. We see ourselves. This is ourselves getting killed it's happening right now. I'll tell you right now, it's happening right now. Even if it's not being reported or captured, we thought maybe, you know, the cameras would make a difference. Now we're seeing that it's not. And so we're at a moment where we just got to keep pushing. I know sometimes people get all mad, defund the police. Well, how are we going to defund? How's the police? And I push back. I'm like, how many times have you called the police? And not to say that the police don't have, peace officers don't have a place in our society. But as we know, the history of police has been to capture us. I think about the movie in one of the pamphlets. They were telling folks of color, look out for the police and the watchmen. They're coming, don't talk to them, right? So when we say, you know, no snitching, and I'm not, you know, I'll take aside that like criminal aspect of it. Like we had to really fear for our lives in speaking with the police till this day. And, you know, so our lives have mattered ever since, and they're going to continue to matter. And all we can do is fight, continue to appeal. I'm done. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'm here. You guys see me smile and all this because, you know, that's my spirit. But I'm done having that conversation with the Trump supporter or with, you know, the person, well, how is there institutionalized racism? You know what I mean? And I'm like, hey, one of my white allies, please speak to this person because I've lost patience in that, you know? And so revolution to me is the only solution, obviously with the lens of evolution. That's what we're spiraling towards. So we just don't keep going around in a circle. We're trying to spiral up towards really it's enlightenment is the key. So I say all that to just let's keep fighting. We got to keep fighting. And, you know, we're in a unique moment because in this chaos, there is opportunity and we have to seize that. And we have to push, whether it's defunding the police or making, you know, changing the way. This is our moment. Now is the time.
Thank you. Well, you're certainly right that we need to keep agitating. As we heard in the film, we need to keep hope at the same time. And we need to think about the next 7 generations, and as I think I heard Camille say. So we'll do one more question, and then we'll turn to the participant question, excuse me. So this question is about those future generations. Ori, your daughter, Tembless, and all of them. For each of you, what do you hope to exemplify in your activism or community work for the next generation of leaders? What are you hoping to leave behind as a legacy for them to follow? Camille, go ahead.
Okay. So I think about this often as I work with the children at the Makaya Sakwiku, the Children's House. And one of the things, of course, is language, preservation, and also being good keepers of the earth. It is our understanding that we do not own the land. We do not possess the land. We are a part of it. We belong to it. It belongs to us. It is a part of us. And so in that knowing, we also have a responsibility and a duty to care for her, to care for the earth. And so along with the earth, we also have to care for her waters. And so those three things tied together are very huge, huge parts of the work that I do and the work that I hope I exemplify every day. And I also, again, I think a big part of doing this work is also being able to understand that we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. So also calling upon the ancestral wisdom of the past and today, as well as the future. I'm hoping that our children learn to do this in a really good way so that we can continue to press on and be determined to be a sovereign nation. And yeah, I think that that's some of the big pieces that I would hope to exemplify.
Big indeed. Thank you. Crystal, go ahead.
Well, I'm right there with you, Camille. You know, I feel the same way. I think about racism and social justice, but I always think, well, if you can't breathe, you can't drink the water, that doesn't matter. Racism doesn't matter because you'll be dead. But what I'm doing personally is I'm creating a record of the people that came before me, the reason that I exist, so that I can pass that along to like my nieces and my nephews, so that they will have that, and hopefully they will pass it on to their children, and so that we never forget where we come from. And as you said, you know, whose shoulders we stand upon. And that's really been it's just been on my heart to do. And I think my ancestors, I always say, are whispering in my ear that this is, you know, what I have to do. It's my responsibility. It's not, you know, I can't question it. I just have to do it. And so that will be my legacy.
Thank you. Tam?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you all. And I believe, the youth are not only the future, but the now, and our need to just pour so much love and listen to them. And I challenge everyone that's listening in to, you know, go out there and become a friend of these children. Just listen to them. Even the scary looking ones with baggy jeans, you know, they're not that scary. That's what you probably looked like when you were younger, to adults. So embrace them. And, you know, for me, I've been working on this book called Planeta Blue, Rise of Agu. And it's about inner city youth from New Bedford who go on this fantastic adventure, really to fight against genocide, and they're taken underwater by this tribe of dolphins to defend humanity against all of the trespasses that humanity has done upon the earth. And it's a beautiful tale, and I don't mind saying that, you know, we win at the end, because I think we need stories of not only sacrifice, not only pain, because there's a lot of like any good story, that you go through a lot of challenges, but you succeed. You know, that now is not a time for tragic stories. And I believe that this book is part of the medicine for our future generations. And you know, for me, music, like hip hop continues to be the voice of the youth. I continue to write music, and you know, I hope people aren't thrown off by my poetry, because I use it. This is how I can kind of cut through. As you can see, I'm sometimes all over the place because there's so much going on, and as artists, we feel a lot, and it's hard to put it somewhere. And you know, and I always tell the young people and others, you know, put it in a journal, put it in a song form, put it in dance, put it in the way that you shoot a basketball, whatever way, because you know, there's forces out there that eat off of, right? They make their money off of fear and death. And we know that at the opposite spectrum is love. And you know, when I went through what I went through, and these police officers that attacked me, they were just fearful of me. And I don't know why. You know, I think I'm a cool guy. I'm not a fearful looking person. But I say this, you know, are you afraid of my skin or what's within? Because beyond this living sunlight, this melanin is a millennium of intelligent gentlemen, godlike, the opposite of Zimmerman, strong like Trayvon Martin. We can't fight. We stand our ground till it's all right. But this long night, it never seems to end. Although we speak to make you understand, we bend, we compromise. But what about our black lives? Did Michael Brown really need to die over some cigaritos? Where are the superheroes? Over loose seas, where are the Bruce Lees? When I was younger, I thought the heroes were the cops until I got stopped, and then I got dropped. So then my heroes became the Black Panthers. Lack of justice turns to black anger. The system will strangle you. I can't breathe. Oh, say, can you see? Eric Garner couldn't breathe. We all saw the videotape. There's no debate. Broken system I hate wants me to wait. Sorry, Charlie, but my patience is long gone. Plus, I'm way too black and way too strong. And we got white allies by our side. Take out police brutality like apartheid. In this long walk, we march with Mandela, Dr. King and Selma through the Mississippi Delta. We march with Malcolm X and Harriet Tubman. March with Rosa Parks. I see freedom coming. March with Frederick Douglass, Garvey and Carney. With my ancestors behind me, they can't harm me. Not the National Guard nor the Army. March non-violent, cloaked by the words of Gandhi. Break these chains of racism. Emancipated, I'm the master. Because Black Lives Matter. Break these chains of racism. Emancipated, I'm the master. Because Black Lives Matter. See, they beat us. They choke us, stomp us with their boots. Hands up. Don't shoot. They tase us. They shoot us, stomp us with their boots. Hands up. Don't shoot. So one love, y'all. That's what we leaving behind, legacy, and also empowering the young people to take to the stage, amplifying the voices of those that aren't heard. That's so important, and that's how we move forward in this until all are free, right? Because our liberation is tied to the European Americans' liberation. You know, you get free by helping us get free. That's how it's tied in. It's all tied in. It's all connected.
Thank you. And I think it was Asada Shakur that said, you know, it is our duty to fight and it is our duty to win. Yeah. So everything that you said, you know, speaks to that, and we will. So we have two questions from the participants, and one is directed to Crystal. The question was from Tanya. Were there stories that you wish were included in the film, but maybe weren't? And can you give us an example?
Well, the film was really supposed to be a trailer for the Abolition Acre trail or tour, and there was just so much information. It ended up turning into this short film, and I should have mentioned that Michael King is the producer of the film. He's the filmmaker, and he gets so immersed in the history. He had piles of books. He just got so into it. He's like, well, it has to be more than 5 minutes, because we were supposed to be 3 to 5 minutes. and it turned into this, you know, this short film. Rightly so. I'm glad that it worked out that way. But one of the images that I have in my head is around the Fugitive Slave Act and the courthouse that's right near the State House. I think the school system actually uses that building now. That building, there was an escaped enslaved person, Thomas Sims, Shadrach Minkins was another, and Anthony Burns. And so because of that act, they at different times were put in that jail, trial, you know, went on trial, and then they were sent back because of that. And so with I think it's Thomas Sims, there were like 10,000 people. They came from all over to witness him being taken back. That to me is just like amazing. You know, people wanted to see, and they had the police, the guards, you know, and they marched from there to the Navy Yard to put him on a ship to send him back to I think it's Virginia. And so that just, you know, there's no pictures of that, you know, that time, but I have this visual of just all these people, you know, like, you know, when you see the Celtics have won and you see all the people lining the streets right in that area. And I imagine that that's what it must have been like when they were marching them back into slavery. And that isn't in the film, but it's a visual that I keep with me, you know. It makes that area so alive for me, you know, with when you talk about, you know, walking in the steps of your ancestors, of those who passed before. You must feel it. If you knew it was there, you'd feel it when you're walking down the street there.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that visual, and for keeping the collective memory alive in that way. This will be our last question, and it's to Camille. Jazz in the chat wants to know if you have recommendations on how to get involved with the First Nation people in Massachusetts, how to support any specific organizations, any resources.
Yeah, I can actually drop some of the links in the chat if that's okay.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
And while Camille is doing that, I'm going to invite Erica Lindemood back in. She's going to begin to wrap us up, and we thank everyone who's here watching, who's here live with us. Thank you to our panelists. I'm so grateful that I was able to participate here with you today, to see some familiar faces again, and hopefully this won't be the last time. And so, Erica, thank you, and go ahead.
All right, thank you all. I thank you to our wonderful panel and our wonderful moderator for a thought-provoking program, and one full of really powerful and positive energy. And I hope that we can all kind of take this moment and carry that energy into the rest of our lives for the remainder of this week and beyond. I am very much looking forward to being able to listen back to this program, because I am on my phone right now. My audio on my computer just failed right towards the end of the program, and so I missed about the last 10 minutes or so of the conversation, and it was really frustrating. I could see you all talking with each other, and I totally didn't hear it. So what I heard was amazing, and I want to also thank everyone in the audience for your active participation. It's great to be able to imagine all of your faces, and I hope that we all get to see each other soon. Once again,
encouraging you all to take a look at the other great events that are available at the Fun Festival for the rest of this week at cityawake.org/fun. And we also hope that you'll visit Revolutionary Spaces remotely, if not in person, over the coming months. So be on the lookout for other special events. Join us or donate at revolutionaryspaces.org. And you can also follow us on social, Revolutionary Spaces on Facebook and at Rev Spaces on Twitter and Instagram. And with that, thank you, everyone. Stay safe, and we hope to see you soon.